Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the York City Planning Commission to order. May we have a roll call?
Johnson,
Here.
Davis, absent. Velez,
Present.
Burgos, present. Wolf is excused. Richardson. Present. And Gaines is excused.
Next item is the minutes from the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Are there any additions, deletions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the September meeting of the Planning Commission.
One second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Oh, no, roll call, please.
Okay, Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos, Richardson.
Motion's approved. Committee reports, zoning hearing board.
Okay, so they only had, the one just carried over to this month, from last month.
All right. Any unfinished business? New business, Jessica Fieldhouse.
All right, everybody, I am here to...
Phone, please. Oh, okay.
I'm Jess Fieldhouse with CS Davidson. Is this on? It is. So I'm here this evening to provide the Planning Commission with an update on the comprehensive plan, which I'll do after. I'm going to switch the agenda items around a little bit. What I'd like to do first is give the Planning Commission a rundown of the residential redevelopment overlay that CS Davidson has been working with staff on. So what I'm going to do this evening is run through the background, how this redevelopment overlay came to be and why, what the impacts are, what we're trying to do, and then run through a schedule for how we see a continued review of this overlay progressing, essentially. What I'm providing first is just a real brief presentation. There's three. Take one, and for anybody in the audience, there are four, I think, here remaining. All right, so CS Davidson and staff initially started talking about the development of an overlay to help create more affordable, appropriate, and not affordable from a subsidized standpoint, but smaller footprint, smaller homes, and more of them within the city. What started this conversation was the Dentsply site being vacant and multiple interest from other areas coming in to turn that from an industrial complex into residential housing. But the ordinance doesn't allow the density that they're looking for. So we started thinking about what can we do where we're not going to be impacting the entirety of the city with a text change or a map change, but still facilitate the development of new housing, right? Which is important, and I'll get to that. But important because we're in the middle of a housing crisis. We're short millions of housing units, and it's impacting pretty much everybody across the nation. So because of the significant need for housing, the significant need for redevelopment within the city, specifically for properties like Dentsply, and then also our responsibility as a municipal government to make sure that we're doing everything we can be doing to facilitate the development of new housing. That's sort of where this overlay came from. The goals of the overlay are to encourage an increase in development of new high-density residential housing, and to ensure access to attainable and appropriate housing for city residents, while also encouraging adaptive reuse of underutilized and/or vacant properties. So it's important for us to consider, all right, why are we in this housing crisis that we're in now? Because it gets to why we have this residential redevelopment overlay in front of the Planning Commission. So since the establishment of zoning, really, it has been procedural for zoning ordinances to separate out completely uses. Residential is separated out from commercial, commercial is separated out from industrial, and you're never going to have, you know, we want to make sure that everything was homogeneous and all uses, similar uses were with other similar uses. In addition to that, what we did was also prioritized the development of single-family detached dwellings. An early case law at the turn of the century, 1905, 1910, 1915, supports the fact that multi-unit structures were seen as, I don't want to say a vice, but they were not seen as good for neighborhoods. So essentially from the early 1900s on, zoning ordinances were very restrictive for anything other than the development of single-family homes. And we can see that in York City's zoning ordinance today, because the RS1 and the RS2, if you look at the title of those zoning districts, those are single-family detached conservation zones and single-family attached conservation zones. And there are jurisdictions and municipal governments across the nation starting to say, we cannot establish a zoning district that is only single-family residential. We have to start cultivating more inventory in our neighborhoods, slightly more density, but more than that, we need mixed income neighborhoods. We're not going to get that with single-family detached structures only. We need to have small apartments. We need to have accessory dwelling units to provide the housing that we need for all of our residents at varying income levels, which is almost impossible to do when you're talking about zoning that is specifically single-family detached and attached zoning. Additionally, in regards to a shortage of actual units, we also have an affordability issue, right? So we already knew that because of the way zoning was working in the United States, we were baking in a shortage of multifamily, higher density units. And then we add on to that 2008, when we stopped, for the most part, housing starts went away, and we've been very slow to begin rebuilding back to the levels of housing construction that we had in 2008. So adding into that shortage, now we're starting to see really significant affordability issues. So we have developers building very, very large units, and trying to maximize their economies of scale by doing multiple of the same type of unit over and over and over. And then we have landlords asking for a premium rent price because housing is of such high demand. So one of the things that this overlay is attempting to do is to try and build in regulations of some type of affordability, not through subsidized housing, but through regulating the size of an actual housing unit. And by trying to get those square footage numbers down so that we can have more affordable housing. We want developers, large and small, to be able to build and construct rental units or units for home ownership that are smaller than 1,500 square feet. We need to have housing options for young professionals, for empty nesters, for older adults living on a fixed income, for younger single family or single parent families. So that's the background of where this overlay is trying to get to. We're trying to take away some of the barriers to construct 2 to 12 unit structures in neighborhoods from RS2 to the MUI districts. So how many of you have had a chance to look through the overlay that was given to you last month? Anybody? Okay. That's okay. It's not a contest or a test. I just wanted to know how many people had had a chance to look at it. So I'm going to give you a revised draft. This has been revised. There was one major error in one of the pages where we were advocating for 150 units per acre. That was an error. Sorry about that. 90 units per acre in the CBD, and I think the EC zone is what that number was supposed to have been. Does everybody have a copy of this? In addition, and these were changes that were made when we did an internal staff meeting. In addition, we modified the eligibility requirements for this overlay. So essentially, this overlay can kick into play in the RS2, UN1 and 2, Employment Center, CBD, and the mixed-use institutional 1 and 2 zoning districts. What this overlay is attempting to do is remove barriers and allow folks to construct anything from a duplex all the way up to, like, say, a mansion apartment that is about 10 to 12 units. And it's only 2 to 12 units is what we're trying to get here on one lot, right? Another thing this ordinance does is dictates the size of the lot from a depth and width standpoint, because ensuring that we get the house size that we're looking for is dependent upon the dimensions of the lot. And in creating this overlay, we did a lot of research into what are the sizes of the lots that we're dealing with here in York City. And it shouldn't be a surprise. Most of the residential lots that we're dealing with here in York City are anywhere between 20 feet in width to 40, maybe 50 feet in width, and about 100 feet in depth, right? So we have naturally very narrow and very long lots. Part of what this zoning ordinance is doing is making it possible for folks to acquire lots and build them on. We're trying to change those normal lot sizes that we see to make it easier to develop this housing. So you'll see these regulations can't be applied to just any lot. They are establishing minimum frontage, minimum depths or maximum depths for the lot. So what it will require is for anybody who wants to use this overlay, they're going to have to work with the city and the RDA, and that's part of the eligibility criteria in working with the city to identify these lots so that they can build these middle housing units. And are any of you guys familiar with middle housing and the term missing middle housing? So look it up on Google if you want to. Missing middle housing is an actual coined planning term. And what it's talking about is just what I said, is how do we encourage and develop these middle housing units, anywhere between 2 and 12 units in a structure, and what are the barriers to creating those units? And the number one barrier is zoning, and the fact that our zoning regulations really restrict to a high degree the construction of this type of unit. This overlay is only discussing new construction. It does not apply to an existing dwelling. So we are in no way advocating single-family conversion to multi-units. Someone would have to either utilize this on a vacant lot or purchase a lot and maybe demo the substandard house that was there and start from scratch. Have I missed anything, Blanda? Or redevelop a larger EC. Blanda is absolutely correct. And that's the other part of this, is making sure that we can do adaptive reuse to residential at a density that will really work for the housing need that the city has. Moving forward, we did review the overlay language internally with staff. And as I said, we made changes. Our next step is to send this language to the York County Planning Commission to get an informal staff review of the language and any comments they may have. Our goal is then to come back to the Planning Commission in November, review modifications, comments from the York County Planning Commission, and then hopefully get a recommendation from the York City Planning Commission that we could take this draft legislation to City Council and review it with them. So essentially in November, we'll be looking for your sort of seal of approval to push this to council. Once we go to council, I believe what we're going to be looking for from council is a review of the legislation and then authorization from City Council to formally send the text amendment to the York County Planning Commission for their review. And they would tell us whether or not they felt as though we should or should not adopt the legislation based on its current form. So that's pretty much where we're at. Are there any questions or concerns?
I have one.
Yeah.
You discussed the different sizes of lots, 20 to 40 by 100, give or take. Within the UN 1 and 2 districts, the lots are not even close to 20. Well, many of them are not even close to 20 wide. Is this overlay going to address something similar to what happened on East Princess during the Elm Street program, where we lost 10 row homes and they built 7 by adjusting the sizes of the lots?
You're going to come up with less because of what you just said.
If you take 2 lots, 12 wide, you're hitting your 20-foot mark. Would this address something like that within this UN 1 and 2?
I don't know that I understand what you're asking.
Okay, you have a row of homes attached, 10 long. There's a fire. You lose, let's say, 3 in the middle.
Yeah.
Would this address combining those 3 empty lots into addressing your 2 to 12 units?
Yes. That's what we'd be encouraging. We'd be encouraging. This is rarely going to work for a single lot unless it's an oddball sort of redevelopment opportunity that's already been cleared. More than likely, applicants are going to have to work on acquiring several lots in order to make this overlay work.
Another example would be the city's parking lot at what is it?
Yeah.
Princess and Duke, or I'm not sure.
Yep, I know what you mean.
So it would address something like that,
Well, that's all one lot, isn't it?
as far as I know.
Yeah. So it would allow you, yes, it would provide more detailed guidance in what those lot sizes should be in order to ensure that we're getting the housing product that we want.
And you're saying lot size, is this property for sale, or I mean, if you cut up that parking lot, say, into 10 lots, so it's going to be a homeownership?
In this instance, tenure doesn't matter. And more than likely, they won't be homeownership because we're talking about multiple units on one lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Hopefully affordable housing.
Well, that's the intent. So the intent is to try and make sure that we're not getting a product that's got a unit size larger than 1,500 square feet. We want to keep the minimum, what the overlay is advocating for certain types of units, the minimum dwelling unit size is 650 square feet, which is pretty small, but still well within what the Uniform Construction Code identifies as habitable living area. And by attempting to cap the size means that the rents will also be capped at a certain point.
The 650 would be a single bedroom?
I'm not really sure, but it would be. It would have to be that, as I say, they'd have to meet the Uniform Construction Code. Uniform Construction Code the Uniform Construction Code will stipulate how large the bedrooms, the minimum size for a bedroom, the minimum habitable floor space, and so this overlay is not trying to get into the role of the Uniform Construction Code because that's locked down, and so long as they're meeting the construction code, we're fine.
I think your example there, the city's current code for a single bedroom is much smaller than the state code.
Do you want me to tell you?
Pardon me?
Do you want me to tell you?
No, that's okay.
Oh.
So I think you're going to address that issue with this program too.
We'd want to make sure that we weren't proposing something that was going to be in conflict. So I'll have to look at that.
No, we're already looking at increasing the requirement in the current zoning ordinance to meet the state level, so
Okay.
we're taking care of that.
Okay,
Yeah, we're less than the state.
Okay.
so Mike, that's for rooming houses. She's talking about minimum habitable floor space for multifamily units. So we don't have, that has to be, and for single, that has to be, that's just for an apartment, okay? The one you're talking about is for a room, for a rooming house. Where we have 250 square feet as the criteria, and Pennsylvania state law, Pennsylvania is higher than that. So what Jess is talking about is an efficiency is a minimum habitable floor space area is 400 square feet. 1 bedroom is 550, 2 bedroom is 700, 3 bedroom 850, and 4 bedroom 1,000, minus kitchens, bathrooms, and hallways.
Her 650 is addressing the 550 you just referenced for a single bedroom.
Correct. She's about 100 square feet high.
But we also hear cases where they want to take a three unit and convert it to a 4 or 5 unit, which we have to adjust the size of the rooms. So this will take a response to that issue as well.
Okay. I'll look into that. That's news. So I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Some things to keep in mind. There are eligibility criteria in the overlay which state that I think it has to be vacant in order for, and it has to have been vacant for some period of time, potentially has to be a redevelopment authority property, tax delinquent. Here's the question I have for kind of staff and the planning commission, and I want to give you this handout. So these are the land use tables from the city zoning ordinance. What I've done is I've highlighted in red the zoning districts that are at play in the overlay. And what I've done then is added in, so you can see on the first page, and there are more here if anybody's interested. You can see on the first page that the overlay is going to permit by right multifamily dwellings if they meet the eligibility criteria within the RS2, UN1 and 2, MUI 1 and 2, EC and CBD, right? So, and again, just for everybody here and everybody out in the audience, this is only for properties that would fit the eligibility criteria. This is not a carte blanche across the board for use of this overlay. However, that is essentially what I want the Planning Commission to think about is, are we comfortable with the eligibility criteria? Do we think the eligibility criteria need to be more, or is it too much? Are we creating a barrier in and of itself with the eligibility criteria? Now that being said, if you turn to page 24 and 25, that's where we're talking about the neighborhood commercial uses. So neighborhood coffee shop, neighborhood grocery store, neighborhood retail boutique, neighborhood office, neighborhood public service, hair care, tailor, art, medical office. This overlay is proposing that those be permitted uses along with the development of additional housing units. It's another component for the Planning Commission to think about. I would love to see us removing barriers and allowing the multifamily development without having to have eligibility criteria. I'm not sure how I feel, I'm not sure how the Planning Commission would feel about that, and also about the neighborhood commercial uses. So those are just some things that if I was reviewing this as a resident of the city, of which I used to be, those would be things that I'd be concerned about. And sort of what I want the Planning Commission to review and sort of mull over this next month. Do we think the eligibility criteria is appropriate? Is it too much? Is it too little? How do we feel about the permitted uses that have been identified for the overlay?
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
24 and 5, some of the proposed permitted uses, these were a huge discussion, a topic of discussion during the last,
Comprehensive plan development, I know they were. I know. And ever since the development of that comprehensive plan, they have been one of the number one issues that are stated for redevelopment within the city. Very restrictive. All I'm just proposing in the overlay, however folks feel about it, that's sort of what I'm looking for. And yes, you are correct. We are trying to some degree, see if we can't get more mixed use within our neighborhoods. More uses, appropriate uses, neighborhood style uses. It increases walkability. It's going to increase interest in our neighborhoods. It will increase the development of additional units.
well, I have a quick question there too. These uses that you're proposing, during the last comprehensive plan, they were restricted to
Corners.
corners.
Yep.
So you're proposing to allow them mid-block?
Yep.
That's interesting.
It's not. How do you think people developed cities back in the day? It's not interesting. It's the way it's usually
It's
done.
interesting you're proposing it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah. And just think on it, please. I know it's a change, but it's more reflective of the natural development that we see in urban cores, as opposed to limiting those neighborhood resources to a corner, which rarely happens.
Well, you remember the discussion, so hopefully we'll
Yeah.
have a remedy to them, so.
All we can do is talk about it again. It's 10, how many years ago? It's more than 10.
Yeah.
It's like 15 years ago. I don't know if thoughts are the same as they were 10 years ago or not. And so it makes sense to revisit it at least briefly.
2009.
Yeah. Been a while.
Yeah, been a minute.
Okay.
All right, any questions?
Yes. Has legislation on overlay like this been done anywhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I did was I started with Springersbury Township also in York County, where the Galleria Mall is. They've got multiple redevelopment overlays that they utilize. They're not map overlays, they're text language. And so if your property or your redevelopment meets the identified eligibility criteria, you are allowed to utilize these land use regulations.
And did that work to keep housing affordable and attainable?
Their overlays are not regarding housing. Their overlays are regarding economic development, but the premise is the same.
So housing, since that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
has it been done that way before? And does it work?
I don't know, and this is why we're trying it.
Because, I mean, just because we make the apartments smaller doesn't mean that people, whatever their intentions may be, will not charge more money regardless. So if it's something that we're trying to make housing attainable by making it smaller, where is the data that proves that it's actually going to be financially feasible for people to still be able to attain these properties?
I don't know that I have that, other than us stipulating using inclusionary zoning tactics, which require that a certain number of the housing units be set aside for folks that are 20% of the AMI, 40% of the AMI, 80% of the AMI, which we're not doing. The intent here is to advocate for smaller units. I'm not sure where the market will come out on a 650 square foot unit, but it's going to be less than a 1,200 square foot unit for sure.
Do we currently have any 650 square foot apartment units in York?
I don't know.
Graybill is going to be a prime example of that.
And do we know were they right for now?
It's not built yet, that's something that we recently.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, is there anything else?
Yeah, sure. No, I don't care.
I'm getting old, sorry. Typical rents, and anyone listening who's a developer will shoot me for saying this, but usually used to be about $1 a square foot is what you would pay for rent. So I just recently heard a lot, kind of the floor now is about $1.50 a square foot. Just met with a developer the other day who's doing about a 500 or 600 square foot apartment. In fact, the Fox Bakery up at 200 block of North George, and I think they're going to be. They penciled it out at like $1,250 a month, but he said they'll probably end up getting more than that just because of the demand for the size, and that would then get you up into the $1.75, almost $2 a square foot. So working that math backwards for a brand new build, which these consider, you're talking about a $600 or a 600 square foot unit. It's $1,200 a month. You know, it's not $600 a month because that's inflation in the market and everything. But if you, typically that's when we refer to a smaller unit being more affordable. It's based on that. When a developer does its pro forma, they're looking at square footage and price per square foot. Same thing with cost of construction. It's $150 to $250 a square foot to build, and then I rent it for $1.50 to $2 a square foot. So it's all based on that math.
And that's the concept that much of the dialogue on missing middle has been built upon. So if you do some research, just like looking up like a lot of middle housing developments that have been done across the country, you'll be able to see some examples of how it has been effective at keeping housing affordable for lower and middle income residents. There just aren't many examples locally to pull from.
And one of the challenges really is with the city, and I don't know the background of the development of the city house sizes, but we have a lot of 5-bedroom, 2,500 square foot houses. And when a developer or a landlord is looking at that, they're saying, well, it's a 2,500 square foot house. I should be able to get at a minimum 2,500 square foot a month, or $2,500 a month. And that's big. That's a big, I just looked it up and verified it. I grew up in Carlisle, but our house as a kid growing up was 1,065 square feet. I just pulled it up on Zillow. It was a 3-bedroom little ranch house. I never thought we lived in a small house. I never thought we lived in a big house either. It was just our house. And that was 1,000 square feet for my sister and my parents and I, and it was fine. So you start thinking about your history, what house you grew up in, and maybe you grew up in a 2,500 square foot house. But I think that the city has its own challenges just because of the size of the real estate that we have. Back in the day, we were a flourishing, huge city that people could build these big houses. But now when you start looking at them, we need a smaller, more, better product that's affordable. Attainable is the word that's the missing middle, is more attainable. Affordable puts to mind subsidies, and this is market, but not market rate.
Market rate, workforce housing.
Workforce housing, yeah, exactly.
I have a question for you, Jess. Earlier, you stated possibly setting aside units for 20, 30, 40%. The only way that I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only way we can do that is through whatever the funding source is.
No, you can do something that's called inclusionary zoning, and it gets built into your zoning ordinance. And what you're doing is, and this can be for new construction, it can be for rehabs. Essentially, you're implementing with a developer's agreement, but inclusionary zoning offers density bonuses for developers for the number of units that they set aside for a family that's below the area median income. So if they're 20% AMI or 60 or 80, that developer gets a bonus. It's built into the zoning ordinance that in order for them to legally utilize that benefit, they have to sign a developer's agreement, and they also have to prove that they can do the income verification to make sure that the folks that they are leasing those units to. So it's it can be a 15 or 30-year contract for an affordable housing developer or a hybrid affordable housing market rate developer, that they have to keep those units as affordable to that AMI for a period of time. So that's generally what, like Harrisburg has inclusionary zoning, and that's what they utilize. So it's a density bonus so long as you're willing to sign on the dotted line and be held legally accountable for maintaining those units for those income levels for X period of time.
They would more than likely use housing and urban development income levels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So for instance, the comprehensive plan, which I'll get to shortly, comprehensive plan is going to have recommendations regarding inclusionary zoning and building that into any updated comprehensive plan or updated zoning ordinance.
All right.
Okay? Okay. If you have questions, I am very much a fan of getting questions and being able to prepare for them. So any concerns, any questions you have while you're looking over it, please feel free to coordinate with staff. They'll get me your comments, and that way I can be prepared to respond to them in November. But if you don't, that's okay too. All right, so do you mind if I switch gears to the comprehensive plan?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Okay.
real quick though, Jess, the handout that you just gave out, can you email that to me so I can email it to those folks that were absent? Thank you.
So the comprehensive plan, what my plan is for next month, and it's going to go a lot like we just did for the overlay. So for next month, I am going to be giving you probably 8 to 10 3 and 4 page standalone documents. So the comprehensive plan has identified 10 overarching goals that relate to the community's relationship with the police department, transportation and increasing walkability and access to public transportation. We talk about increasing access to mental and physical health resources. We talk about improving access to fresh food and decreasing the impacts of food deserts throughout the neighborhoods in the city, and a whole bunch of other goals. Each goal has about 3 to 4 objectives. What we're preparing, and these are standalone, so everything will be published in one document. But not everybody's going to be interested in reading that cover to cover, and certain folks are going to have more of an interest in one of the sets of goals than the other. So these are going to be essentially standalone white papers that we can pull out of the comprehensive plan, give to folks that will give a rundown of the existing condition, and how we intend to fix it and what those action steps are. So my goal is to get the Planning Commission those documents so you can leaf through them. What we're looking for, did we miss anything? So, say for instance, we didn't cover inclusionary zoning. I would be looking for the Planning Commission to be looking through those action steps and those proposed recommendations. Where is this? Yeah, sure.
Before you go any further, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record on this one, but Nancy, where are we at with the committee from the Planning Commission that's supposed to be involved in these meetings?
We are waiting for it to say when they are supposed to be implemented.
So we're still getting documents as a complete board, and not once has the committee from the Planning Commission been involved in any of these conversations. Is that my understanding?
So Jessica.
I don't think so, and let me address that, because I believe that when much of this work was done during the pandemic, there was involvement from the Planning Commission. So essentially what C.S. Davidson is doing, and I'll put a huge caveat here, because of existing workloads and other items going on, the comprehensive plan has not been substantially worked on since March. So since we did those visioning sessions and kind of re-talking to folks, we gathered information, but unfortunately kind of hit a standstill because of other items. Now we're going to be finalizing that. So you would not have had, November will start kind of the Planning Commission's review of this document based upon all of the research that staff had done in 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021.
I think what he's asking, though, Jess, is the Planning Commission as a whole, or we not elected, but they volunteered 3 of the 7 members to be specifically on the Comprehensive Plan Committee.
And that committee hasn't met.
And whose responsibility is that?
I don't have anything for you to meet on. I don't have any.
The committee hasn't met since March, so there hasn't been.
Right, so somebody is meeting.
No,
In order,
no,
somebody,
the staff is meeting internally, and even internally for the comprehensive planning discussion, it's been pretty much at a halt since March because we have not had an update
And that's my fault.
to
So,
move forward. So there's nothing that's going on that
Right.
you guys aren't aware of.
so then what we're saying is the timeline that was given to us a few months ago is no longer valid, we're starting where we're starting at now.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, the people that are in the committee from here will be involved, or are we saying,
I'm
forget
not
the
sure,
committee?
at this point, everything needs to be fluid because we're doing something that isn't often done, right? Trying to pick up a process that was started by other people, try and maximize the product that we have thus far without having to repeat steps and get everybody back on board. I'm not sure at this point that we have all of the members we got very few responses back when we emailed the committee. I think I got 2 responses, and then we had the 3 folks that were interested from the Planning Commission. So of the 24 individuals or 12.5 individuals, we are now down to 2 of the original and the 3 who were from the Planning Commission. So based on that, I would suggest working with the Planning Commission as a whole and just finalizing this review of the pulled together document. And either the document has the information you want to see or it doesn't and we need to add it. Yoki dokie? Okay.
Sorry, question. Jess, sorry.
Sorry.
So the items that you're saying we're going to have for next meeting, is that something that we're going to get in advance so that we can kind of review ahead, or we're going to get
I
that at the
imagine you're going to
meeting?
get it at the meeting.
Okay.
And I'll give you an overview of what it is and what the schedule looks like and how I see us moving forward. And then that will give you between November and December to review the documents that I've provided and then get feedback, and we can touch base then again in December.
Where in your timeline is there an allowance for public meetings?
We'll have to come up to another schedule. I would want to make sure that from the Planning Commission standpoint, we have everything that we need to make this a document that this commission is happy about, with, proud of, willing to send to council. Once we have that information, then I believe what we need to do is some open houses to walk through the different components of the plan. Because we've already done all sorts, I mean, there's been a massive amount of public outreach thus far to collect information. So the next part will be, all right, here's what you told us, this is what we developed based on those conversations.
But we're going to need public comment on what.
We're going to need public comment on all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
All right?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our first case this evening is 37-2023-Z-SE, 742 South George. First, we'll hear from staff, then we'll ask the applicant to step forward.
Applicant Leona Rega at 742 South George Street, owner Human Life Services, 742 South George Street. Zoning district is UN1 Urban Mixed Residential Commercial District. The summary, the applicant is seeking a special exception to renovate a deteriorated carriage into an educational resource room for the Human Life Services dwelling at the same address. The applicant seeks a special exception to renovate existing carriage house into a community center. Staff has reviewed the variance provision of 1304.01.3.02.002 and finds the property is suitable for a community center. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a special exception to convert a carriage house into a community center at the property of 742 South George Street.
Could you
Sorry.
provide your names for the records, please?
Sure. Seth Knoll with Kinsley.
Leona Riga with Human Life Services.
We're missing the information for this applicant.
They were tabled, so you
Oh,
should have
from the
had all
previous
the
meeting.
information last month, because they were tabled because they didn't show up.
Okay. Okay, could you give us some information, more information on what you want to accomplish here?
Yeah, I apologize. We had a issue last month where the 2 calendars that the city had conflicted, and we thought this was on a Tuesday. Basically, have is a carriage house that is existing, 525 square feet, and they wish to take that existing structure on the property and turn that into a, as it was said, a community center use, and that would be for counseling that they presently do on the property, and then have the ability for the parents that are there to also pick up supplies while they're there for the counseling sessions. The reason for it is that where it's done currently within the property or the larger structure, this is an ancillary structure, so it is a service that would be provided in an ancillary structure. The service is already provided, but for privacy issues, they wanted to have a private counseling area and wanted to utilize a structure on the property that is at this point vacant or unutilized. And we have gone through the sections as was stated and have provided for the criteria. And, excuse me, those criteria fall under the section 311 for the, and if you'd like, I can read through these. This comes from the section in your ordinance for the conformities. Would you like me to go through those?
Yes, okay.
First was the purpose to meet the growing needs of the facility for unplanned pregnancy, and it was for the parenting use that we talked about. Compatibility, renovation provides for expansion of current services provided since 1995 in the main building, moving some of the existing services to the renovated space. Additional appointments may be added to the daily schedule. The renovation design will keep the visual integrity of the current structure and will not impede the surrounding properties. Suitability, location of the service is excellent, excellent as it is directly connected to the existing parking lot and a few feet from the administration clinical office, and handicap and other spaces already provided in the area. Serviceability, having the serviceability of the items from the main house for the services. To that, accessibility, carriage house is located on the rear of the property next to the existing parking lot and main structure, which is also accessible from George Street and Cleveland Avenue. Conformity, intent to use the structure will be a nonprofit service to the community which complies with the definition under section 3.02.002 of the zoning code. Congestion, the intended use is by appointment only, and which is currently being operated in the same way within the main structure. Public safety, the structure would be completely renovated under a separate building permit should the zoning, should this be approved. Overcrowding, business and carriage house are already existing. Light and air, they're existing, they don't affect other properties. The impact is the carriage house is existing and will be tied into the main structure for utilities, minimal impact due to the overall small square footage and not in the floodplain. So they do meet all of the different criteria. If you'd like, Matt, if you want to pull the photographs. So we'll provide some photographs for you of the existing structure. The garage doors would be removed because they're deteriorous, but they would be put back with a like kind of look, very similar to what is there, according with the HARB overlay needs. The intent is to basically have the building look as it does currently, just renovated, putting the same type roof, redoing the moldings, the windows, making it basically a sound structure.
What would the main entrance be?
The main entrance,
Would it be in the alleyway or in the driveway?
this, the way this is oriented is the alley being in the back, so the main entrance will be on the side of the building. The parking lot is in this area.
So they will walk through the, that driveway that's there?
Yes, they would would walk around. This is,
This will be the entrance.
no, that is the alley.
No, that.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you're correct. That is, they would walk through that concrete area. And that would be fixed as well. Yes. And then the alley,
And
Cleveland is back
It's
here.
not gonna have any entrance or exits, there's only one entrance and one exit?
That is correct. And by building code, that's permissible because in a non-sprinkler building, you can get out with a single exit with the number of people there and 75 feet. So it does meet all of the, we've already looked at it for building.
And how
code
about those,
compliance.
are they gonna be windows that board
That is
up down?
correct. Put the windows back in and restore the building to the look that it had before.
Okay. Would you like to add anything else?
Now, if there are any questions that we might be able to answer for you?
I need a motion to bring this from the table, please.
I move to bring case 37, 2023, 7SE to the table.
A second?
May we have a roll call?
Johnson?
Aye.
Velez?
Aye.
Lopez? Aye. Richardson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did anybody have any questions? Anybody from the public that would like to address this case? Hearing none, do we have a motion on a special exception?
I move to recommend an approval of the special exception to allow a community center use as defined in section 1304.01-3.02.002 at 742 South George Street in the UN1 zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson?
Aye.
Velez?
Aye.
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 There you go, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Case 2023-Z-V, 224 West College Avenue.
Applicant is Jamie Smith, 224 West College Avenue. The owner is the same. The applicant purpose use of the property as a rooming house. The rooming house will have 5 rooms in total, owner occupied. Some of the bedrooms are smaller than the minimum square footage of 250 square feet required by the zoning ordinance. The applicant can provide the required 4 off-street parking spaces. The applicant is seeking 1 variance to provision of the use and 1 variance to allow the use. All right. Of this use and 1 variance to allow the use. All right. The zoning ordinance requires that within a rooming house, each room for rent be at least 250 square feet in the area. The bedroom is existing and likely the same size as its original construction. The applicant has not altered the property. Staff recommends approval of a variance to allow rental rooms smaller than 250 square feet as defined in section 1304-2 through 7-17.B1. Active structure at 224 West College Avenue in the UN2 zoning district. The zoning ordinance does not permit a rooming house in this zoning district. Staff have reviewed the variance provision of 1311.10.D and finds that the property does not have unique physical circumstances or conditions that warrant relief from the variance. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the request for a variance to allow rooming house defined in 1304.2 through 7.17 at 224 West College Avenue.
Before you begin, sir, I'm going to step away and the secretary will take over the meeting.
Okay. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Good evening, board. My name is Jamie Smith, 224 West College Avenue. I believe I presented a pamphlet to the board, so I'll be going through the pamphlet. I've presented in the paperwork zoning determination letter, copies of my deed, as well as a graph of the house as best I could. So what I'll begin with, board, is going through the pictures at hand. The first picture that will be presented is the sky view. And along that sky view on the side, there are parking spaces, maybe from 1 to 11 parking spaces on the side of my house, as well as for off-street parking. I have across the street from my home is, I believe it's the 230-something block of Oak Lane, another off-street parking area. And through the pictures, I'll be going through the pictures as well. Once again, coming into the home, you have the front steps, you have the front room, then you have a half picture of the front room, then you have a full picture of the front room. Then you have the half bathroom that's downstairs. Then you have the dining area, like a dining room table, the kitchen area, and as well as a treadmill on the side. You have the kitchen area, then the full kitchen area. Then you have a laundry room. Then you have the back stairs. Then you have the full bedroom. The next picture will be, there's like a patio or balcony outside of the full bedroom. Then I have a picture of the hallway. Then the next picture will be the picture on the side of the full bedroom. Then here's a picture of another restroom, a full bathroom, shower and bath. And this is the third bedroom on the second floor. These steps are leading to the attic area. And the next picture from the steps would be the attic area. And this is a full picture with a fire extinguisher in the attic area. And the next picture would be the attic closet and the attic window. And then the last picture will be that off-street parking on the side of my home. Well, I presented these pictures. Hopefully they were helpful, but I wanted to open a rooming house, because when I lived at 37 West Market Street, a lot of times I would come home from work and I would see this guy. He would be asleep in front of my house. I mean, he would be asleep in front of the door. We have to step over in front of him. And one day I was talking to him, and he was saying he received SSI, but he didn't. He had an alcohol problem, but he didn't know the proper ways to stop drinking or do whatever, and he couldn't rent a room nowhere. But upon getting this property, I say maybe I could give back to society, help some people, as well as, just do a good deed. So I had to go through a few things to get here, and I wanted to present it to the board, and maybe I could be, someone of good help for the people that are out there homeless that may receive SSI, and, have low-income rent, provide shelter for them, food, and maybe help them out, help save some lives.
Is this... Sorry.
I was just going to ask, sorry. Did you do the work to the property yourself? It's
No.
kind of off. I was just going to ask. My childhood best friend grew up in this house, and
Really?
I see the improvement. So
Okay.
it's very nice work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Richardson, yes, ma'am. Some work was done. I included a laundry room because people may need to wash. I included new gutters, new roofing. Some things needed to be done to the house that, so, I tried to make it as if a place that a person would like to stay.
I have
Yes, ma'am.
two questions about the balcony. What room is it in?
Main bedroom.
In the front?
Yes, ma'am. Well, Miss
On the side?
Miss Maribel, it's the master bedroom is like in the back of the home, in the back.
Okay, so it's in the back. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the second one, on the picture, it looks like the floor is separated from the
What picture would that be, Miss Burgos?
dark one that you see.
Oh, that's the balcony.
Yeah, the balcony. The balcony looks like it's detached from the rail
Let
on
me
the
see
floor.
that.
You can see light coming through it.
Oh, I see. I believe I understand. I believe what you're saying.
It just
That-
looks a little
Okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying right here.
Right at the
That's-
bottom.
whereas though the shutter wasn't brought down a lot. I mean, if that's a problem, that can be fixed.
Yeah, I just want you to make sure that that's fixed before
Closed
anybody
off.
steps on it. I don't know how weak or strong it is. It just looked a little dangerous.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But that's
So
it.
you would want that to be closed off, like this
Just
gap
want to make
closed?
sure that it's safe to stand on. I don't know what the structure is and how it's built, but there's a gap on the floor and the railing, you know, just to check on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you don't want anybody to fall through.
I understand. Yes, thank you, Miss Burgos. I believe me, my contractor, and maybe 4 other people stood on the balcony.
Okay.
You know, so it's very sturdy. But I definitely make a further look into it. I definitely will. Thank you. I definitely will.
Do you currently reside at the property?
Yes, sir.
And your intent is to stay there?
Yes.
Question for staff. I know sometimes when we get cases like this, we request or recommend stipulations on it. If he moves out of the property, does it automatically revert back to its prior use?
So, if he is approved all the way through, he is approved under, because he didn't get a variance because he lives there, so he doesn't need a variance, so it has to be owner occupied. So if he moves out and decides that he wants to rent out that room, he has to come back before planning and zoning to get that approval. But the stipulation that you're talking about is if he were to sell the entire property, then to have him agree upon converting it back to single family and not selling it as a rooming house.
Yes. Both, I think.
So,
I think both
yeah,
questions
yes.
were answered.
Okay. Yeah.
So that
good
was a
question.
two-part question, and that if he would just move out, he would have to come back and get permission
And if he sells it,
his room and not be owner occupied, he'd have to get that variance.
and if he sells it, same.
I'm sorry.
And if he
Sells
sells
has
it,
to
it's
be
the same too.
converted Back to,
Correct.
The
Yes,
single
that's
family.
that's the second thing.
Okay.
I just have a quick question in reference to that photograph. Is it possible that the siding on that balcony is separated all the way around the base of the balcony?
No.
I mean, or is it just,
There are two sides. I'll wait for you to finish, Mr. Johnson.
or is it just that corner that's loose or something? It looks like it could be a possible gap that goes around the whole balcony.
oh, that could be, yeah.
Well,
You know how sometimes they have like an
Exactly.
inch and
Yep.
and water can go through without,
what it is, I believe, because just had some problems with the squirrels. Yeah, woke up and squirrels were trying to, whatever, but went out there, and I believe there's a gap on each side.
okay.
On the side on Oak Lane and on the side of the back of my house.
I'm sorry, it sounds like it's basically that was a design, was designed that way.
Exactly, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Still me? Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion? For the variance.
I'll move to approve the variance for each room to be larger than 250 square feet as defined in section 1304.02-7.17.b1 at 224 West College Avenue in the UN2 district, zoning district.
I'll second.
The motion's been seconded. Richardson. Can you call roll?
Johnson,
Aye.
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 Motion approved. Is there a motion on the second variance?
I'll move to approve the variance to allow a rooming house as defined in section 1304.02.7.17 at 224 West College Avenue in the UN2 zoning district.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Aye.
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 Motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Thank you.
Thank you.
And what's the proper word for that? Yield? Yeah, I yield back to the chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Case 2023-Z-V-SE, 636 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Thank you. I think we have. Oh, yeah. I got them.
636 Pennsylvania Avenue, applicant and owners, Summix Holdings LLC, 980 Summit Circle South, York, PA 17403. Zoning district is RS2, single-family attached residential conservation. The property, when purchased, was marketed as being used as a multifamily dwelling with long-term tenants already in place. The applicant is seeking a special exception for the use and 3 variants to bring the property into compliance with the zoning ordinance as a multifamily licensed 2-unit. The applicant seeks a definition variance since the proposed use does not meet the ordinance requirements of conversion from industrial, institutional, or commercial. The property is a single-family home. Staff have reviewed the variance provision of 1311.10.d. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the definition variance to allow 2 units for the property at 636 Pennsylvania Avenue. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance since the proposed density is less than the permitted by the zoning ordinance in this district. Staff have reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d and finds the property is big enough for the proposed 2 units. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a dimensional variance to allow 2 apartments for the property at 636 Pennsylvania Avenue. The applicant seeks a variance to the special exception condition that the property has not been vacant for 2 years. The applicant purchased the property as a 2-unit with long-standing tenants. Therefore, hardship has been achieved for this variance of section 1311.11c. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of a variance to the special exception condition of the property being vacant for 2 years for the property at 636 Pennsylvania Avenue. The zoning ordinance requires 3 off-street parking spaces for the proposed 2 units, and the applicant can provide only 2. The applicant is seeking a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces. Staff have reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d and finds that the property does not have unique physical circumstances or conditions that warrant relief from the requirement of 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Therefore, staff recommends denial of a variance to the minimum number of parking spaces required for a multifamily dwelling for the property at 636 Pennsylvania Ave. The zoning ordinance permits multifamily conversion from a different use by special exception in the zoning district in 1304.1.1.02.002. Staff has reviewed the special exception provision for this property. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request for the special exception to allow multifamily dwelling unit at 636 Pennsylvania Ave, pending all variances are approved.
Yes, sir.
It's a long list. I'm Jeff Lobach with Barley Snyder, 100 East Market Street, stone's throw from here. And with me tonight is Zindi Shao, who is the member and sole owner of Summix Holdings. Zindi grew up and went to high school in Florida, but saw the light, came to Pennsylvania, and has been a York County resident for 17 years. We're talking about 636 Pennsylvania Avenue, as you heard. We're in the RS2 district. A lot of the facts aren't in dispute here. This is half of a semi-detached building. All utilities are separated and have been, we think, for decades. And if you look at the pictures, you can see that the electric meters look like they've been separate for quite some time. Mr. Zhao hasn't been cited. He is under no pressure to be here, but he wants to bring his property in compliance legally, which is why we're seeking these variances and the special exception. He acquired it in December of 2022. There's one unit on the first floor, and then the second and third floors are another unit. The first floor unit's about 900 square feet, which meets the minimum requirement, and the other unit's about 1,200 square feet, which meets the minimum for a two-bedroom, or three-bedroom, sorry. This was my first time through the electronic application process, and I don't think I did a very good job of teeing up the issues, which shouldn't be attributed to my client. I take responsibility for that, but there are quite a few here. The first is the variance from the very definition that we're talking about. And when you, in your ordinance, under the section cited, which is 1304.01.02.002A, the conversion's supposed to be from a different use, commercial, industrial, or institutional building, to a multifamily. This was done decades ago. It presumably was a residential use at the time. The building was a house. Technically, we're not converting from a residential use, but we have this existing condition. For that reason, we would really respectfully ask for the variance. This has been like this for many years, and it doesn't seem to make sense to me to deny the conversion to make it all legal because the particular use from which it is converted isn't covered in the ordinance. The next one, as was noted, is one that the staff recommends approval of. It's a dimensional variance. We've got a 3,200 square foot lot, which is about 0.74 acres. If you do the math and apply 15 units per acre, we're entitled to 1.1 dwelling units, more than one but not two. We would ask for two. And again, a dimensional variance, and under the circumstances we think appropriate. The next one that was mentioned has to do with the language of the special exception requirements, that the property be vacant for 2 years before you can come in and seek a conversion. Again, under these circumstances, the conversion's already taken place. It's a existing fact, and the staff agrees with us that it doesn't really make sense to apply that to this use under those circumstances. Next is the parking issue. We can fit four vehicles in our parking pad. It's kind of a, as you can see from the last photo, it's a pad behind several houses there. We'd like to be able to have two conforming spaces, which is why the variance is sought, although we can make do with space for three, accommodate three vehicles anyway. Again, a dimensional variance, we think we can satisfy the standard. The special exception requirements, we heard them covered before. The purpose must be consistent with the city's development objectives, and it is. Community growth, economic stability, quality of life. Has to be compatible. It's existed for quite a while, but it doesn't have any effect on pollution of air, land, noise, hazards, illumination, anything like that. It's an existing condition, and there's no material environmental impact. No construction is planned here. We're just continuing what's already there. Has to be suitable under C3 of the Special Exception General Standards, and meaning it's designed, constructed, and operated to make sense, not create traffic congestion and so forth. There are no negative impacts by granting this special exception or these variances. Serviceability, all utilities are available to the property. It fronts on a public street. There's access in the back through an alley, which covers accessibility as well. In terms of conformity, there are some provisions of the ordinance that it doesn't conform to, but those are the ones that we're asking for variances from. So except for those, it is conforming. No impact in terms of congestion under C7. Public safety, not an issue. All public safety is available there under C8. No overcrowding. Won't create undue concentration of people in the neighborhood. No impact on light and air. Again, no changes are planned. In terms of the overall impact under C11, there's no impact on transportation, on water, on school, park, or other public facilities, and we're not in the floodplain. So we feel we meet the special exception standards. We would respectfully ask that all the variances be granted and the special exception. The one that might be a little bit in play is the definitional one, but here we are. We probably converted from a residential use many years ago. That's not part of the definition, but the case turns on that issue. So we'd ask that you grant us the variance on that point too, or recommend.
Thank you. When the home was purchased, was it on the market as a multi-unit?
Correct. It was advertised as a 2 units.
I'm sorry?
It was advertised as a 2 units.
And it's currently not licensed as 2 units?
Has it ever been?
I can't say ever. It only goes back to when our system, when they updated the system. I'm not even sure what the year is. I will tell you that I think I have a little history on this because a friend of mine used to live there. She used to live on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and then the woman who owned the house lived on the 1st floor. So I wasn't the zoning officer, planner, or anything. Didn't even work for the city back then. That was a long time ago. Just probably, I'm going to speculate that the woman who owned it didn't feel as though because she lived there that she needed to license it as tenant occupied. So then here comes along, I don't know if that was the same woman that he bought the property from, but maybe somebody in between there also didn't do that as well. But yeah, it was.
The deed says it was sold from Sean Jackson.
Okay, so no, this was I believe a woman that, I'm pretty sure her landlord was a woman who lived on the 1st floor. I don't know if Sean is a man or a woman, so I'm not sure.
In 2008, it was sold by some people named Yingling to Mr. Jackson.
That's probably who it was then, because I want to say it was, I don't know.
And Jackson did not
2007.
occupy any part.
For the parking, he says that he's able to provide 3 off-street parking, but our sheet says that they're only able to provide 2.
Well, when I spoke with them, I asked could they provide that, and it was said no, so that's why they had to have a parking variance. And if they could provide 3 parking spaces, I'll ask for a picture to present for the board, and I don't see
That's
that
in the
picture. I didn't see that.
Deck is wonderful.
You want to address that, the parking issue?
So there's a paved cement pad in the back, and if you happen to see an aerial photo of the property, you can see there's plenty of space for 3. But right now, it's just for convenience of the tenants. You only park 2 cars here. But yes, there's enough space for 3.
In this photo, could you show me the property you're talking about?
We have a little arrow there.
Oh, okay.
This is what we gave them. So maybe we don't need that.
Did you see the deck?
You see it, Monty? Here.
Is there not something like in place with utility companies?
It's ridiculous.
Contractor gets paid in that.
So,
Can you fit 3?
yeah, from what he just showed me, what he just confirmed to me, he can fit 3. The person that they sent to do the paperwork was misunderstood what the question was.
Okay, so we don't need that variance then?
We'll withdraw it.
We don't need the parking variance.
Would anyone else like to make a comment about this case? Hearing none, is there a motion on the variance for definition?
I move to recommend to approve a variance to the definition of multifamily conversion from a different use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002A at 636 Pennsylvania Ave in the RS2 zoning district.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Aye.
Motion on dimensional variance?
I move to recommend to approve a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 to include conversion of a single-family home into 2 units for the property at 636 Pennsylvania Ave in the RS2 zoning district.
A second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Richardson, Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson. Hold on for 1 second.
Aye.
That one was Richardson and,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a motion for the variance to waive special exception?
I move to recommend to approve a variance to waive the special exception provision that the property must have been vacant for 2 years found in section 1311.11C1 for the property located at 636 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
A second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
And we no longer need the parking variance, correct?
Correct, I put on the minutes that we struck that one because they can do 3 spots.
All right. And a motion for the special exception to allow multifamily.
I move to recommend to approve a special exception to allow multifamily use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002 at 636 Pennsylvania Avenue in the RS2 zoning district.
A second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You gotta slow down.
Maybe you can give us some advice for when we applied in June. At the time, we didn't think that a business trip that Mr. Zhao has to make in October would impact, but he has to be out of the country on business at the time of the hearing at the beginning of the session. We need to put that in writing and submit it to the staff. Yes. Okay, good with that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Case 2023-Z-V-SE 315 East Poplar.
Applicant is Anna Encarnacion and Luis Vasquez at 936 West Locust Street. That's the owner too. Zoning district, UN2 Urban Residential Neighborhood Zoning District. The property, when purchased, was marketed as being used as a multifamily dwelling with long-term tenants. Already in place, the applicant is seeking a special exception for the use and 3 variants to bring the property into compliance with the zoning ordinance as a multifamily licensed 2 unit. The variance 1, the applicant seeks a definition variance since the proposed use does not meet the ordinance requirements of the conversion from industrial, institutional, or commercial. The property is a single-family home. Staff have reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d. Therefore, staff recommends denial of a definition variance to allow 2 units for the property at 315 East Poplar Street. Variance appeal 2, the applicant seeks a dimensional variance since the proposed density is less than permitted by the zoning ordinance in this district. The staff has reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d and finds the property is big enough for the proposed 2 units. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a dimensional variance to allow 2 apartments for the property at 315 East Poplar Street. Okay, applicant seeks a variance to the special exception condition that the property has not been vacant for 2 years. The applicant purchased the property as a 2-unit with long-standing tenants. Therefore, hardship has been achieved for this variance of section 1311.11C. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a variance to the special exception condition of the property being vacated for 2 years for the property at 315 East Poplar Street. And special exception, the zoning ordinance permits multifamily conversion from a different use by special exception in this zoning district in 1304.1.1.002.002. Staff has reviewed the special exception provision for this property. Therefore, staff recommend approval of the request for a special exception to allow multifamily dwelling at 315 East Poplar Street pending all variants are approved.
Hello. Could you provide your name for the record, please?
Ana Encarnación.
And could you give us a little more details on what you want to do here?
Oh, so me and my husband, we buy the house about like 3 years ago when on the tax selling house. And then when we buy, I guess like the people that already live over there, they start like make it like a 2-unit house. And then, so we finished the job and now we would like to make it like a legal. I don't know. You understand me? And we already have family people who already live over there. Single mom, and we are just make everything right. That's it. I don't know. I'm so nervous.
No problem. Cuando usted compró la casa, ¿ya estaba de 2 habitaciones o usted la convirtió? I asked, did they buy it as a 2-family or did they convert it?
So cuando la compramos, ya estaba como preparada.
It was already prepared when they sold it.
Ya tenía el primer piso,
The
su
first
baño.
floor had its own bathroom.
Ya para el segundo piso ya tenía la tubería como para la cocina.
And the second floor had the plumbing and everything ready for the kitchen.
Solamente pues terminamos el trabajo.
They finished the job.
Can you ask her if there were people living
She
there?
said there was a single mother. And ¿quién es que vive en el primer
En el primer piso vive una mamá con 2 niñas.
A mother and 2 daughters.
Y
This is the first floor.
Y en el segundo piso vive una mamá con su niña.
And their second floor has another mother with a daughter. Los biles son separados, la electricidad es separada. ¿Quién paga entonces los biles?
Yo.
So she has to pay the bills. So there is no separate utilities. Todos, la agua,
Agua, basura,
trash,
electricidad,
electricity.
todo.
¿Y cómo se califican? ¿Cómo se calienta la casa? How is the
con-
house? ¿Gasolina con gas o
gas.
electricidad?
Ajá.
So it's gas?
Ujú.
Okay, so it's a gas heating system.
Are separate utilities a requirement for tenant occupied? No? Okay.
Ella preguntó si eso es una de las demandas que tiene que estar separado todo.
Sí, pero como fue mi primera vez,
It was her
nosotros
first time buying
nosotros
a building.
honestamente no
She wasn't
sabíamos
sure.
cómo era el proceso ni nada.
Ellos dijeron que no.
Ah.
Ellos dijeron que no es requerido que los biles estén separados.
Ah.
Ella dijo, I'm telling her, she said that the bills do not have to be separated. The utilities don't have to be separated.
Oh.
La directora dijo que no tienen que estar separados los
Oh,
biles.
No sabía.
Yeah.
Is there a requirement for a variance for the parking or not?
No, they didn't need a variance for parking because they told us that they can provide the 3 spaces that they needed. So we didn't even
¿Puede
look
poner
into it.
los 3
Sí, la
espacios?
casa, ya
The
tiene,
house?
tiene patio grande y
It has a
ya
huge
actualmente
yard.
tiene
And in the back,
el
there's
espacio para
plenty of
los parqueos,
parking
para 3 carros,
for
hasta
3
más.
cars, even more.
There's a pad area that could accommodate 1 to maybe even possibly 2, but there's no parking for 3 cars.
Que allá atrás parece que no hay para 3. ¿Hay un retrato?
Sí. Ah, tengo en el teléfono, ¿no?
She has it on her phone. Sácalo, porque él lo va a querer ver.
I'm familiar with this property, so the fence along Fauna Alley goes back and only leaves space for 1 car at the end of the property.
Yeah, she says she has pictures of it, so we'll see when she brings it up. There is no backyard pictures. Nope.
If you look at the photo from the internet, I guess it is, overhead, the white spot at the very top of that,
Sí,
this is the parking pad. It's not big enough for 3 cars.
okay. Y dice que eso no hay espacio para 3 carros.
So, cuando compramos la
When they bought the house,
Yeah.
ahí había un garage. y
there was a
parece-
garage,
Pero parece que lo destruyeron.
and they took it down.
So, ahí se parquea un carro.
So 1 car
Entonces-
parks there.
Entonces aquí hay un.
Oh, so
se
they go
puede
into the green.
2 carros más.
They go into the side and they park
Sí,
there.
ajá, porque aquí está la calle, aquí más parqueo de otra propiedad. Oh, sorry. Ajá, no, the picture, I have to look. So this is de aquí, de esa, de esta, ¿cómo se llama?
A fence,
A
la fence, the
Ajá.
fence.
Es la yarda que tiene con
That's
su.
where the yard begins.
Yeah.
So they're using the green as parking.
All right.
Ajá, de green, ajá, un parqueo. De aquí para allá son 3 carros que se pueden parquear.
So she says from here to here, 3 cars park. They don't enter
Yeah.
this way, they enter this way.
Sideways.
Ajá.
Okay. All right.
Como el garage estaba así.
So the garage used to enter that way, so everybody parks in that way.
All right.
Maribel, is it a approved surface?
It's half cement and half grass.
The garage structure did not occupy the entire space, so there is a part of a yard.
But
that's-
and then the
that's-
fence is after that
Yeah.
space of the parkings.
Can you ask her, is she planning on making that an approved surface?
Ese sitio le tienen que poner como cemento para que sea definitivamente.
Sí, si me da la aprobación,
Ah.
creo que que lo pedí y me dijeron que tenía que esperar a la decisión de ustedes.
She said that she asked and they said they have to wait for your decision before she does that.
And it could be gravel too.
Y puede ser nada más que piedra, no tiene que ser cemento.
Thank you. Any other questions? We don't need a variance.
Oh, okay.
Oh, tengo más fotos más mejor. ¿La quieren
¿Qué
ver?
fue?
Ah, tengo más fotos de
She
parking.
has other photos of the parking.
Oh, that's
More
okay.
mejor.
Le
más
dijo que
mejor.
está bien.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else like to address this case? Do we have a motion for the variance for definition?
I move to recommend to approve a variance to the definition of multifamily conversion from a different use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002A at 315 East Poplar Street in the UN2 zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? May we have a roll call?
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye. I move to recommend to approve a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 to include conversion of a single-family home into 2 units for the property at 315 East Poplar Street in the UN2 zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye. I move to recommend to approve a variance to waive the special exception provision from that the property must have been vacant for 2 years, found in section 1311.11C1 for the property located at 315 East Poplar Street in the UN2 zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Thank you.
I move to,
Oh, wait.
so I think there's one more, the
Thought we
special
had-
exception.
Oh, sorry, one more.
I move to recommend to approve a special exception to allow a multifamily use as defined in section 1304.01-1.02.002 at 315 East Poplar Street in the UN2 zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Now, thank you.
Oh, ya.
Gracias.
Gracias.
¿Sí me aprobaron?
Sí, pero ahora tiene que ir al frente del al próximo, there's another meeting she has to go to, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sí.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
I'm so nervous.
Case 2023-Z-V-SE, 381 East Market Street.
Applicant and owner is Carmelo Cassiano, 830 Clare Lane, York, PA 17402. The zoning district is UN2, Urban Residential Neighborhood District. Summary, the property is currently licensed and inspected as a 3-unit multifamily dwelling. Before the applicant purchased the property, the previous owner operated it as a 3-unit multifamily building without zoning approval. The applicant is seeking 2 variants to bring the property into compliance with zoning ordinance as a 5-unit building. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance to increase the number of units from 3 to 5 since the proposed density is above the maximum permitted by the zoning ordinance in this district. The zoning ordinance will permit 2 without a variance. Staff has reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d and finds that the existing structure is unique in its size and can contain 5 dwelling units that each meet the minimum square footage without additional renovations. Therefore, the staff recommends approval of the dimensional variance to allow 2 additional units for the total of 5 for the property at 381 East Market Street. The variance appeal 2, the zoning ordinance requires 8 off-street parking spaces for the proposed 5 units. and the applicant can provide none. The applicant is seeking a variance to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces. Staff have reviewed the variance provision in 1311.10.d and find that the property does have unique physical circumstances or conditions to warrant relief from the requirement of 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit. They are landlocked. Therefore, staff recommends approval of a variance to the minimum number of parking spaces required for a multifamily dwelling for the property at 381 East Market Street.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Could you provide your name for the record?
Yes, Carmelo Casiano.
And could you explain what you're proposing?
I'm proposing to make it a 5-unit legally apartment, 2 studios and 3 one-bedroom apartments.
How many is it currently?
Currently, it is that. It was bought as a 3-unit, and it was configured previously. So what we did is did some minor things in there. Came back to get permits, and then they told me that I couldn't do any more work until I got approval from zoning to keep working on it.
When you purchased the property, it was 3 units? Was it rented as 3 or 5?
It has been vacant for, I think, maybe over 2 years, maybe? About 2 years. So, yeah.
How many bedrooms did you say?
There are, on the second floor, first floor would be a studio on the front and a 1-bedroom in the back. Same on the second floor, and the third floor is just a 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
Was it separated that way when you bought it?
It was kind of configured that way, yeah. So basically, they had, when I came in, I kind of finished what they were what somebody started, or tried to finish. Again, I still have work to do, but it's, I have to get permits from the city to continue working on the building.
Are the utilities separate for each apartment?
Yes.
Do you have a picture of that? You don't have a picture of the utilities.
I don't think I have a picture of the meter bases in the back, but there's 5 meter bases in the back. But that's part of the work that I would need to do with the city. So they wouldn't let me do anything until I got zoning permission. So I don't know if you have my packet that I handed in.
Yeah, we have it.
That row of garages at the end of the building, are those your property as well?
No, it stops at, I think there's a house back there where the property stops. So there's a nice big yard back there, but then it stops at that house.
I'm sorry, they belong to? 383. Oh, 383? Yeah.
So basically it'll be all street parking for everybody.
Yeah, no, we looked at that, I guess Mr. McMillan asked me about that, and this is Market Street, Columbia Avenue, and Broad Street are all the streets that are kind of the neighboring streets of that building.
Go ahead.
What's behind the property that there's no
Another
room for
home.
parking? Another home?
Yeah.
Would your tenants have access to the parking next to the church, or?
Yeah,
Is that
those are caddy. I guess you have to back in parking. That's all free parking. I guess first come, first serve, basically.
Okay. Basically, that whole section of the street is back in and open,
Yeah.
open season, I guess.
However, the Market Street is all, I guess, meter parking,
It's
so
metered,
after certain hours, you get, I guess you get free parking.
5.
Yeah.
5 o'clock.
Any other questions? Did you want to make any comments?
Good evening. I'm Brian Tate. I live at 377 East Market Street. We've lived there for 14 years. I've lived in that neighborhood, though, for 34 years. I previously lived on South Pine Street. This is an historic part of the city of York. It's made up of historic single-family homes as well as historic apartment buildings and nonprofit service agencies and churches. It's a great neighborhood, and it's represented by the Downtown East Neighborhood Association and the Old Town East Neighborhood Association. One of the issues that is always impacting this neighborhood is its high density and parking in particular. The building that we're talking about has been vacant for at least the past year. I am curious about how there were 5 apartments in a building that wasn't licensed as 5 apartments. It was just sold on Zillow, or it was just sold recently to the gentleman, and on Zillow it reports that it was sold as a single-family home, a 4-bedroom home with 3 bedrooms. So I'm also curious about it being an apartment building when that's not how it's been sold. It also reads on Zillow that it's a 2,954 square foot inside property, and using Ms. Fieldhouse's 650 square foot proposal, there's no way 5 apartments could fit into that space, just using general math. The difficulty that we have in this neighborhood is the impact of all of the apartments and the service agencies that reside in that community. So in front of my home is 1 parking spot. In front of the building that we're talking about, there's 1 parking spot. In front of the building at 383 East Market Street, there used to be 1 parking spot, but the city took that away when it installed a drainage area. There are 5 apartments on the corner property, 383 East Market Street. However, no parking spots for those apartments. All of the 6 garages behind that building are rented out to other people, so an additional income source for that property. So it's very difficult when you keep adding more and more apartments to a neighborhood that doesn't have enough parking to accommodate them. All of the parking spaces on Broad Street are taken by the residents who live on Broad Street. We don't have access to the backs of our properties, nor do we have parking on those Broad Street properties or my property or this property we're talking about, because they are landlocked. We're not able to get to the alley, so we can't put in parking either. Unfortunately, the folks who use the YWCA, which is also in our block, they don't park in the YWCA's parking lot. They pull up to the front of the YWCA for drop-off and pickup of their children, for the services that they're using there, thus more cars taking up the parking in this 300 block of East Market Street. Asbury United Methodist Church does not let residents park in its 2 parking lots, which is unfortunate. They sit empty most of the time, but they reserve those parking spaces for their own residents. We have 2 apartment buildings at 369, 371. They have space behind their building, but all of their residents choose to park in front, using up parking spots on Market Street. One of the residents even uses spots for his car washing business. So there are people pulling in all day and getting their cars washed, I think illegally, but again, taking up parking spaces. The hair salon that we have in the block, again, they don't have parking in the back, so their folks are parking in front and using parking spots for that business. I'm not objecting to businesses in the neighborhood that are legal. I'm not objecting to folks who are using parking spaces legally. But I don't know how we can cram 5 apartments into a building that wasn't meant to be 5 apartments. And I also don't know how we can continue to say there's plenty of space for people to park when, unfortunately, neither my property or this property has any parking spots. We're all fighting for the same parking spots. So it's a challenge. And so, we were thrilled when this gentleman bought the property, and we've been watching him work to improve it, and we appreciate that very much. We just don't know how it can add more apartments to that property and spaces that just don't exist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think to your point about the property selling as a single family, I think that's an issue that we see come through here all the time. There are many properties, just as we had 2 cases of people who bought properties that were marketed as 2 units but have only been zoned properly as 2 units. So I think there are many people buying that have to encounter that issue, and we don't really have a fix for it. It's something that we should definitely, look into to see how we can avoid that. However, I think we need housing, and unfortunately, parking is going to be a growing issue and concern in our community. I'm not sure how far this is from the Central Business District. Like, how many blocks out is it? Like 1 block, 2 blocks, 3?
It's about 3.
3, okay. I'm asking because
It's at the end of the 300 block, so it'd be
Okay.
4 blocks out from the square.
Okay. Asking because we don't require any parking in Central Business District, and I think the look and feel of this neighborhood is very similar to that.
It's outside the district.
It's outside, I'm saying, but the look and feel of the neighborhood is still very similar to what is present in the Central Business District. So I'm of the mind that the same needs could be, met here as far as not needing the parking. However, I respect your concern, and I understand it as someone who desires to park their car
surprised that
somewhere
even-
close to their house.
I thought it was actually in the district because it's so close to downtown.
It's outside, yeah.
I mean, it's barely outside, but it's outside.
Sure.
I do appreciate that it looks and feels like the downtown business district, but it's not. So I think if that is the opinion of this body or of the zoning hearing board or of city council, that should be changed first. I don't think we should be retrofitting. I think we should do things in the right steps.
Correct. My final point was just going to be very much to the discussion we had at the beginning of our meeting with the residential overlay. Yes, that's not something that we voted and instituted yet, but this is the exact type of development that we are looking to promote in the community to help increase the amount of housing that we have available to our residents as we are facing a housing deficit.
And you mean we as in the staff that is discussing?
Yes,
it,
I'm
not-
sorry. Not we as a planning commission.
Okay.
We as a body, people who work here at City Hall. That is the goal of the overlay. And that's not speaking for planning commission. I'm just saying the goal of an overlay, the goal of promoting missing middle housing is to create more dense housing to address the housing crisis.
The idea of more dense housing doesn't apply, it applies to new construction, it applies to open areas, but this is already a confined district that you want to increase the density of without allocating other resources like parking. So I have an issue with it.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, if I could address that. I thought for certain that Ms. Fieldhouse's presentation was about properties that haven't yet been developed. She was talking about dense supply and other properties. I think that's totally acceptable because we're talking about taking large pieces of property, large buildings where we can put in mixed use. This block, this neighborhood already is mixed use. I don't know that we need to try to carve out more space to encourage more people to live in an already highly concentrated area. There are additional issues that come up then in neighborhoods like mine. When people move out of these apartments, we have move-out piles. We are constantly looking at move-out piles across the street from us all the time. That is an issue. Thankfully, the city now has an app where I can take a picture and send it and Reaction to that has been much quicker than it has been in the past, but it's still constant. The trash issue in our neighborhood is constant. So the more people you're packing into an already concentrated neighborhood, that issue gets worse. And again, I'm not saying that this gentleman is going to be a bad property owner. We'll build a relationship as we go. What I'm saying is we shouldn't take a property that's supposed to be zoned one way and just start cramming more people into it. Thanks.
Just to reiterate.
Okay, could I comment? I'm sorry, what was your name again? I'm sorry. Brian. Okay, so just for some clarification, this property is licensed as a legal 3-unit, okay? The applicant is just adding 2 apartments to it. So when you were saying you didn't think it would be big enough, so when he adds those and he's doing the rehabbing of those, if he were to get approval for the 5, he would have to, when it gets inspected, it's going to have to meet the habitable floor space, so he knows that in advance. So it's going to have to be, okay, I'm just saying that it was 3, and now he's just going to make it.
I understand that. My property on Pine Street, I licensed as a rental. I purposely did not carve it up into apartments. I kept it as a single-family home because, again, our neighborhood is already over-concentrated. So I understand that, but I appreciate your clarification. Thanks.
Any other questions?
So, just for clarification, it's already licensed and zoned for 3 units. The real question here is the parking.
Is the additional, yeah.
And
I do
just to-
want-
I'm sorry, I've been, like I said, I've been in and out of the building, evening, morning, whatever it is. When I try to get there, I try to give him his spot. That's no problem, but I've never seen, up and down Market Street, Broad Street, there's always parking spots there. So, I mean, it's not that you can't find a parking spot, you're probably not gonna be in front of the house. So that building and the one next to us, close to the corner, nobody probably is gonna get in front of the house. That's just the truth about that. I mean, it's just the way the curb is and all that, there's no parking spot in front of the house, so, I mean.
I think it's also important to note that this property is on the bus route directly. A bus stop has to be within a block of this property, probably right on the corner right there.
It's diagonal.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion for the dimensional variance?
I move to recommend to approve a dimensional variance for multifamily conversion from a different use to add 2 units found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 for the property at 381 East Market Street in the UN2 zoning district.
I second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Johnson,
No.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Okay,
Motion's carried.
hold on, slow down. There you go. Go ahead.
You're good? Oh. I move to recommend to approve a variance to the required 8 off-street parking spaces found in section 1304.01-1.02.002 for the property at 381 East Market Street in the UN2 zoning district.
I second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Johnson,
No.
Velez,
Aye.
Burgos,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, sir. Approved. Discussion on all planning, planning/zoning paperwork.
The discussion on the meeting packets. Meeting packets.
Yes, that's our last topic of discussion here. I gave you handouts because I was going to put it up on the screen, however, that's not working. So the handout, actually, Jada did a lot of work with this. She actually did the handout specifically to kind of explain this, what we want to do. And I understand, you know, that there was some concern about everybody not having a laptop sitting here, you know, being here on the board and bringing their laptop so they have something to look at. But we're trying to cut back on the amount of paper, the hand delivering of the packets. We're also, like, for instance, tonight there were no planning cases, but sometimes they get very big, a lot of plans and everything, and then we're trying to get the the actual applicant, engineer, architect to supply us with everything digitally so that we can then forward that on to you. Now with Monty's zoning cases, they all are digital. I mean, we have to scan in the application itself so they can be you know, sent to you. So basically what this was so that you can see SharePoint and how we can make it into one folder. And the first time that you do it, and Jada can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the first time you do it, you're gonna have to identify yourself so that it's not some willy-nilly person getting the packets and getting the information, and going forward, you won't have to do that any longer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, and so that you have it compactedly. So I think other than Maribel's concern.
My problem, my real concern is when we're sitting here, I'm looking through the paperwork and I'm looking through the pictures. We're gonna sit here with nothing in front of us. Nothing.
Well, the idea was that we could pull it up on the screen, but that's not working. So
we can't do
that's
it.
definitely something that has to be addressed before we can make a full switch.
So, and that's not us, I mean, it is us as cities.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's not going to be feasible because we were going through everything. I mean, we're looking at pictures, we're looking at the parking, we're looking at this, we're looking at the fire, we're not gonna have it unless the city's gonna give us laptops that we can sit here. I mean, we don't have to take them home. They can sit here and open them and use them as needed, you know, log in with a YCP email, whatever.
No, it's a valid concern that has to be addressed. The point still is that there's a lot of waste with the meeting packets
Oh,
that we're trying to
absolutely.
cut
There's
down
a lot
on.
of waste, but-
So that's something for us to take back and discuss internally with how we can, in lieu of the screens, because they do what they do.
Okay, the que-
So
question
let
I
me
have-
ask you this, if we get the problem corrected with the TV screens, okay? Do each of you have the access at your house so that you can look at them ahead of time, you know, and then have some sort of prior, you know, hey, and then we bring it up and everything, that you're not seeing it for the first time? In other words, you can open it, look at it.
That's not a problem. The problem is sitting here and having a discussion like we just did about the girls' parking spot, and she pulls up a picture, and we discussed it, and we looked at it. If you would then, when we're ready to do it, say, you know, picture 3, bring it up, you know, enlarge it, minimize it, and we can have that discussion like we just did, then that's not a problem. The problem I'm having is that if they don't fix it, we're gonna sit here with blank pages, with nothing. Because I'm not printing that package at home, absolutely not.
No, we don't expect you to print it at home.
Yeah.
No one's
Absolutely
not
not,
happening.
don't expect you to do that, so.
I know,
mean,
I
we-
know it's a cost-saving measure, but it's, would like to sit here and have the guy come up and show me the dimensions of the garage, you know, rather than nothing on a screen. And if it's on a screen, what's the public looking at? Are they looking at the screen? Are they observing us? What's going on?
So it would be on all 3 screens.
So
If-
the camera would be taking this whole shot.
What is the person sitting at home viewing?
They would see the board and then they would be able to see that camera. I mean, that TV.
That TV right there.
They would see, the
We
primary
know-
focus would be on the board though, and I don't think that's any different though. It's not like the public gets the meeting packet now, so I'm not, is that what you're saying, that the public should be able to also see the
No,
meeting
I'm just
packet?
asking because putting something on a screen, you have two different options. Which one is it that's gonna be on the screen? That's what I'm asking.
The screen that we see would be the contents of the meeting packet. What people who are viewing at home, they would see us still.
Okay.
It wouldn't change what they see,
That's my
yeah.
question.
We know, we're just presenting this so that you can have an idea of what, you know, there's tweaks, we gotta tweak it, we have to talk about it, but it needs to be talked about so that we can see, you know, what challenges, which we have right now, which are like with our IT department to get the, get the screens up, okay? And then challenges that you brought to us as a board as to how, you know, it's just different challenges that we have to get through. We know eventually everything will be,
So when we're meeting, are we going to then have an IT person here to run the screens?
oh yeah, I mean, it'll be me for planning commission and it'll be Monty for the zoning hearing board.
Not that I have an opinion either way, but to kind of what she's asking, what happens if it goes down and we're supposed to be at a meeting?
If it goes down, what, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's,
Well, like,
Not that I have an opinion either way. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
And that, and you know, right, I get that, that's a concern as well, you know, if it goes down, then, you know, of course, that I would call Cliff, who is our
are we
guy.
canceling then the meeting?
However, if he can't bring it up for some reason, that, you know, that anything electronic that is done, you know, you take a risk with that, because you never know if it's gonna stay up the whole time. But,
I
you
mean,
know,
if
we
they
have
want
to
to go
stream.
electric, I really truly feel that they should go then screens on each of our monitors or each of our
be the most sensible thing
things.
to do, but costly.
I mean, if you're gonna go, you should do it right.
I kind of work in that field. So, I mean, there are ways to mitigate, for sure, you know, the possibility of everything collapsing at once. Stuff happens, but, I mean, there are definitely ways to mitigate that.
Are we resourced to do that?
We should be right now, but I understand everybody's concern. I also understand the necessity to save the trees. So I don't have an opinion either way, but there are a lot of variables that are involved with that level of production per se. So I get it.
Well, and we thought, Chris, that we could depend on you, because you're the production guy.
You know so much.
You know, right,
That
so we
sounds
thought
like-
the backup option would be you.
That sounds like a consultant fee.
Yeah.
Run the tab up.
That's right.
Well,
So I am noting the concerns with doing that. Like I said, we have to, you know, work through things. This is just your initial presentation to say, so, once we work through these things, this is how it will look. So that you have it, so that you know how to bring it up and what to look for.
Is this
Well-
gonna go into full effect next month? I mean, is this how quick this is gonna work?
No.
No, it's not.
No?
for most of this information that we received paper-wise tonight for these cases, most of that I can understand. But when it comes to plans like that, I want to see a hard copy. Because on a screen, you cannot look at an entire development page on your laptop. You'll have to do the zooming and all this. You don't get the full picture on a laptop. I
So
would still
if-
like to see paper copies.
So if for the planning cases, if you get them, like if you get them electronically ahead of time, like we're gonna ask them for electronically, but if I ask them for one copy,
If you print it out at home, you're gonna get this little bitty thing here.
Oh, I know.
No, I don't.
No,
want-
no,
But what
no,
if you
I'm
get
not-
like an electronic copy and then we have a larger hard copies available at the meeting to look at
Why
while
can't we
we're
get
looking
it-
at
If you're
it?
gonna have them at the meeting, why can't we get them before the meeting?
Because the mitigation is to keep our staff from having to drive around and deliver the meeting packets while also not having to print out these large scale items that are going to end up in the trash can in the first place.
Who's printing those items, the development pages?
Who's
The
printing?
developers print them.
The
Yeah,
plan,
well,
the
then
planning
they're not-
ones, you mean?
That's not a cost of printing it out. I'm sorry?
You mean the planning ones or the
The
zoning?
one in front of you that I have to sign tonight.
Oh, the zoning ones. That, the applicant gives 15 copies.
So that it's not a cost to the city.
No.
But then our
Ask a question.
staff.
I'm not playing them. I'm just actually genuinely curious on this one.
I just want to.
What did the planning commission, did they always have the planner drop-off packets? Has that been since the beginning of this
That's a
board?
great question.
So I was on the planning commission when I was at the wastewater treatment plant. Ironically, the planner at that time happened to be attached to my house because we had a semi-detached house. So yeah, she would drop it off, you know, she would just give it to me, ring my doorbell, give it to me. But so that, I was the zoning officer for 4 years, almost a year now planning, and on the planning commission for 2 more years before that, so 6, 7 years, I can say yes, they've been dropping it off. So we were just following suit, but we're trying to get up to the year
As long as I've
2023,
been on the commission, it's been dropped.
and, you know, trying to,
I like you visiting.
huh?
I said I like you
I
visiting.
love your house too. I will tell you, I love your
I
house.
saw you last time and I was trying to run out and say hello, but you took off.
I know, I'm like, I love your house, I love going up there, and then the ring doorbell, I'm like, I just drop it off, you know, and, however, I mean, if Monty is not available, he's the only one that now, that has access to a city vehicle. I mean, I as a planner don't, I mean, I could get one, I could get, you know, borrow my boss's if I needed to, and not that I couldn't drop them off in my own car, however, it just makes better when you drop them off, you know, like if I'm sitting in front of, let's say Chris's house, or well, more like Corey's, or sometimes Mike's, you know, if you have a city vehicle and you're not parked properly, they don't tend to, you know, or you have to double park because there is no parking spots. Just saying,
We're back at no.
just saying.
There's no reason.
We'll let's work on the tweaks. I made some comments here as to, you know, I will give you this, I will research into, say, 7 surfaces, 7, you know, see what we can come up with IT to leave here. Just like Maribel says, you don't want to take it home, it's just to bring it up here.
Yes, I can open it
So
up and look.
Yeah, because they
Do
could be
my
used
own
for
thing.
every board that comes here then.
Well,
I
they
think
would have to
everybody
share.
should. I mean, they should be here.
7 is the maximum number that's on any given board.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys have the maximum number. So, I mean, yeah, to leave here. So, do you all feel, excuse me, comfortable with, say, if that were to happen, that you would feel comfortable enough to be able to bring it up on your email? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like y'all are computer savvy enough or whatever. that-
And then, you know, we have
Our
the
instructions.
agenda and our little saying up on our screens so that when we're approving or not approving,
Absolutely,
we,
absolutely.
you know, I need it up because we
Right.
all read it.
Because believe it or not, when I was on planning commission and then in my early years of zoning, Mike and I collaborated with that. Hey, let's make it easier because everybody, especially new folks on the boards, would stumble with that. So let's put the verbiage right there so we can keep things moving along.
Yeah, and it helps because we don't know those numbers and not going to remember them either.
Well, why not?
Well, actually, the numbers were added by myself because the zoning hearing board, the solicitor needs to read them into the stenographer, not as pertinent.
So we don't have to say that?
Can we?
No, you don't have to.
Because it sounds so
I mean, I put
official.
them in there so that you know in case you know, like Mike Johnson probably has them memorized.
I like them.
As long as he's been on the board. But I'm saying zoning hearing board really needs to have it.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, we've been saying a mouthful. The whole reason.
Exactly, I mean,
Oh.
Exactly.
yours is being put onto the, YouTube presentation, but we're not paying a stenographer,
Right.
All right.
okay?
So you've made your notes and everything, and you'll present it to them for discussion and come back to us?
Yes, we're gonna, I mean, we'll continue to do them, by paper unless that they say that we can do the 7 Surface Pros or laptops or whatever up here, because then you guys would be okay with that. But I seriously doubt that they're gonna give me permission or even have a solution to that till the next month's meeting.
Okay.
But it is budget season, so if we talk
Yeah,
to
it
the
is. I know.
appropriate
We need
people.
Add it to the budget.
So,
Well,
so
well,
do
my
do we,
thing- well, my thing also is to what are they doing with all the ones that,
okay, do we have any further business?
No.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Monty.